Okay. Okay. Again, good to see everyone tonight. We are into Proverbs chapter 10 this evening. And so the New King James heads this section, the wise sayings of Solomon. And so we're starting to move into more the kind of the bite-sized chunks. And so we're going to start thinking about things a little more topically, perhaps. And so tonight we're going to begin by not looking in Matthew, despite what's up on the screen. But we are going to be looking, let me get over there before I make it bigger. We're going to be looking in Proverbs chapter 10 at verse 1 as we think about fathers and mothers and children. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 1, the Proverbs of Solomon. I thought we might just start simply with this. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. And so, going back to the beginning of the Proverbs, how the whole thing basically starts out. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, talking about giving wisdom to the young man. Proverbs 1 verse 8 reads this way, My son, hear the instruction of your father. So you think about this picture. A wise son makes a glad father, and a foolish son is the grief of his mother. So let's just go ahead and get into our questions. The first one is, how would you describe this wisdom and this foolishness? A what? So let's do the first one. How would you describe this wisdom? A wise son makes a glad father. How would you describe that wisdom? And yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Gonna
And then
say
Pat.
he would make the father proud.
Okay. Go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say he makes good decisions in his life, and
Okay.
that makes his father happy.
Okay. And I will say where I was headed with this, the verse that we read this morning in the lesson in First Corinthians chapter 1, the verse, for you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. This wisdom is not, this wisdom is not just worldly wisdom. This wisdom is not just common sense. This wisdom is what James talks about. This is the wisdom that is from above. And so, you think about this wisdom, and I understand, when we think about our children, a wise son makes a glad father. And, Stewie's a little camera shy, but Stewie is watching in there. At least I think he is. If not, he can hear me. Yeah, there's my family. Yeah, he's over there. He's behind Jennifer. There's Stewie. And, as Stewie starts going through life and, making decisions, about his career, making decisions about where to live, making decisions concerning marriage, um, making decisions just to open up a can of worms because I feel like it, how to vote, all those sorts of things, all those decisions. And I'd like for him to have a good job. I'd like for him to have a happy marriage. I'd like for him to vote a certain way. If he's not a Christian, everything else is for naught. If he's not a Christian, it's just as foolish as it can be. And he can be so wise according to the flesh, but if you don't enjoy the wisdom that is from above, it's just as foolish as it can be. I mean, there's Solomon was, and Solomon's wisdom. I guess the question is Solomon. One of the questions with Solomon, his wisdom, which was from God, but bottom line is, what did he do with it? And so, anyway, yeah, we've spoken a good bit about Solomon and Rehoboam and the decisions Rehoboam made, and stuff along those lines. And so, this wisdom, it is not worldly wisdom. And so it is the wisdom from above, and we always need to remember that. And so that goes hand in hand with the second part, describe this foolishness. There's so many proverbs about foolishness. The foolish farmer, you know, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And he was not rich towards God, is the Lord's condemnation. The 10 virgins, you have the 5 wise and the 5 who are foolish, and the 5 who were wise were prepared. The foolish did not prepare themselves. And so you see how, of course, what we're preparing ourselves is for the Lord's return. What other thoughts do you have on wisdom or foolishness, just in general? Anyone have
John?
any other? Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I said a wise son seeks to please God and pleases mom and dad, and especially God.
Yep, and in some, it all overlaps. That as we'll talk about, and let's go ahead and get into our second question because adult children have God-given duties and roles. So our second question is, what responsibilities do adult children have? And so what I was thinking, Bruce, just as you're talking, is these God-given responsibilities. This is how we please. This is one way we please God, and this is also how we, frankly, make our parents glad as well. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
The first one is to honor their father and mother
Okay. So how do we do that?
by being respectful of them
Okay.
and
And
take
that's,
when
yeah,
they are in need, just as when the children are in need, the parents will be there for them. They should be there for the parents when the parents are in need.
yep. And as we get older, if we are blessed to reach that age, who do we need in our old age? Like, we need help.
Mhm.
We need help. And as we get older, we're probably going to need more and more help. And so when you come up to First Timothy chapter 5 and in talking about, oh, let me get over there. I tell you what, let me put this one up on the screen. And there's something that's mentioned in First Timothy that perhaps I don't give enough airtime to, typically. So in First Timothy chapter 5, and it starts getting, as it talks about honor widows who are really widows, but if any widow has children or grandchildren, and frankly, I forgot that it doesn't just mention children, but also grandchildren. And so you have these roles not just for the next generation, but the following generation. If any widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show piety at home and to repay their parents, for this is a good and acceptable before God. Obviously, true widows do not have children or grandchildren. And so widows who are left to themselves fall under the church's care. But here it's children and grandchildren. It's like your parents need help, grandparents need help. And so that's what we're called. That's one of the responsibilities that children and grandchildren have. And that is, as Pat said, it's right. As our parents took care of us, and that was not always, as our parents changed our diapers,
Hmm.
as our parents get older, we can repay them. And that is right. I cleaned that up for y'all. I was going to put it a different way.
I
And
can't
I mean,
ask.
it's not pleasant, but it wasn't, you know, when it's a child and the child is a baby. But as we get older and as we enter the second childhood, we aren't quite as cute and adorable as we used to be. but nonetheless, we need help.
Mhm.
And our parents and our children and our grandchildren, they have that responsibility. Now, I will say, so as we do that, should we have any sort of, and Pat, this is one reason I asked, how do we honor them? As we take care of our parents physically, what sort of attitude should we have as we do that? Because I think sometimes we can resent our parents
Mhm.
and have the wrong kind of attitude. So what sort of attitude should we have?
Loving.
A loving attitude,
Respectful.
respectful. There's a few different verses I'd like to look at. Um, One's going to be looked at a couple of these passages in Proverbs. In Proverbs chapter 20 at verse 20, and I won't put these up on the screen just because we're going to be skipping around a little bit. Proverbs 20 at verse 20, it says, "Whoever curses his father or mother, his lamp will be put out in deep darkness." You know, and you think about just that warning that sometimes children, adult children, can curse their parents. And it's like that is not right. There's other things we'll talk about along the way, but you know, you have this concept over in chapter 30 at verse 11. It talks about the same thing. In Proverbs 30 at verse 11, it says, "There is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother." You know, the passage in Ephesians about children honor your parents, for this is right. And you know, you're respectful and you honor them and you don't curse them. And it's sad that there are people, and there's always been people that have cursed their parents. There's actually a passage in Second Timothy when it talks about, and this one I will put up on the screen. In Second Timothy chapter 3, let's get over there. And talking about kind of the signs of the apostasy, in not chapter 2, chapter 3, says, "But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutals, despisers," and on it goes. But it seems like that verse 3, let me see what the other translations are. So that's the ESV. There in verse 3, they are heartless.
Mhm.
The New American Standard is unloving. Let me see what the King James is there. Yeah, the King James is the one that puts it that way, without natural affection.
Mhm.
And just that idea of cursing mother and father, I would suggest is a part of that. That is without natural affection. Um, Yeah, Keith just sent a note if I can pull it up. Keith says he had seen a bumper sticker on a car that said, "Be nice to your children because they get to pick what nursing home you go into." That's yeah. Um, and children, you know, that idea of natural affection, I think that goes both ways with children towards parents, but also with parents towards children and children towards parents. One of the other places you see this show up, do you remember in Proverbs chapter 31 and talking about the virtuous woman? Do you remember what it says her children will do?
They
Praise
rise
him.
up and call her blessed.
Yeah. Her children will praise her, call her blessed, and you have that idea there at the tail end of Proverbs chapter 31. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And so within these two questions, you know, what responsibilities do adult children have and what sort of attitude should children have? You know, we just need to be careful and to make sure and hope, you know, hope it's all a manifestation of love. And so that probably needs to be said. Children, hopefully children love their parents. And hopefully it's not just loving in word, but in deed as well. One of the things I didn't mention concerning responsibilities, and just because there's a few other proverbs about how children treat their parents. This is Proverbs chapter 28 at verse 24. Whoever robs his father or his mother and says it is no transgression, the same is companion to a destroyer. Y'all remember how when Jesus comes on the scene, what the Jews, how the Jews were treating their parents? Anybody want to explain the concept of Corban? What Corban was to them? Anybody
Yeah,
remember?
John.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
It's when they give to the Lord and then they tell their parents, I don't have any money to give to you. I gave it all to the Lord.
Yeah, and it's almost like it was premeditated. It's like I can't give it to you. I can't take care of you because I'm dedicating it to the temple. And it's wow, so you're going to let your mother and father be neglected. And so this proverb, it's like, man, that's whoever robs his father or his mother and says, "Oh, it's no transgression." It's like, wow, they were willfully neglecting their parents. That's bad. It's like that's bad. That's real bad. And I can tell you right now, it does still happen. I knew a lady who has since passed, and this lady was married. She developed stage 4 cancer. Okay. Her children, she has 2 children living out of state. And a lot of issues with the family. Family drama. Won't go into too much detail. Family drama. Her mom gets stage 4 cancer. And the comment was made, it's like, you need to go see your mother. It's like, you need to be there for your mother. And this child made the statement, it's like, I only have to honor my mom while I'm under her roof. Now she has her husband to take care of her. You could probably guess how most folks felt about that comment. In the Old Testament, what would they have done with that child?
Found him.
Yeah, yeah. So all that to say, it does still happen. And it probably happens more regularly than more often than people think, where children do not honor their father and mother like they should. And it might simply be in how they talk about their mother and father. And that when we talk about our parents, there needs to be honor and respect and and those things. And we need to remember that God is listening as well. And again, does it mean that our parents were perfect? Does it mean that we were perfect as parents? Obviously not. But this is right and good in the sight of God. Any questions or comments about anything so far? Just, again to our original verse. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. You might think about Rehoboam's choices, and I know, Solomon made his own bad choices. The question with Solomon is always, at the end, you would hope that he had learned from his mistakes. You would hope. And all we can do is hope because it's not recorded. But when Rehoboam comes to the throne, don't you know that Solomon wished that his son would make wise choices. And the choices that Rehoboam made were a grief to his passed on father, frankly. And it's like, man, just just be wise and make wise decisions and most importantly, follow the Lord. Follow the Lord in the Lord's ways. Okay. Any other questions or comments before we do the fourth one? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, in that first verse, a wise son makes a glad mother, and a foolish son is a sorrow to his father as well. And when Solomon was in that first chapter, verse 6, hear my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching.
Yeah.
So there's a mother involved in this as well,
Mhm.
Yep.
and they have to honor them.
Yep. Absolutely. Brenda, what were you going to say?
I also feel that we can extend our care to other family members. Like I have an aunt.
Sure.
She had two sons. The oldest son died, be 2 years in September. And he was able to do a lot more for her than her youngest one is because the youngest son has brain damage and doesn't have all the
Yeah.
faculties to really help take care of her like she needs to be. So even though I'm her niece, I'm closer to her more like a daughter because I'm
Yeah.
able to do more for her and take her places and that kind of thing. I think you can extend yourself beyond just your mom and dad when there's other family situations come up and uh, another situation that came up, the Laymans. Well, both of their children were out of state and they didn't have people to help them to get to doctor's appointments and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so Bruce and I stepped in to help out whenever they needed to have doctor's appointments. So I think we need to look beyond just mom and dad.
Yeah.
There's other brethren that need help, and there's other family members that are uh, probably qualified enough to need help.
And I guess I will say, and I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I was just thinking of like Ruth concerning Naomi. Ruth very easily could have said, it's like, we're not related by blood. Ruth was the daughter-in-law to Naomi. And very often in scripture, when it talks about family, and it's like the generic word for family, it's almost like the Southernism kin. And it's like, as Brenda was talking about her aunt, and Brenda, just give me a head nod. Your aunt lives in Illyria. Isn't that right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, she's asked for prayers before and they've helped. And it's like, you take care of family, you take care of your own. Concerning that second point about when children are living out of state, and I'm living out of state away from my parents. Jennifer's out of state of her dad. And I think children should be thoughtful. Again, I understand brethren are nearby. There's a proverb. Oh, I'd have to hunt for it. A neighbor that is nearby is better than a brother that is far away. And so sometimes brothers are far away, sometimes children are far away, sometimes parents are far away. But children also need to make wise decisions concerning concerning their parents. And what I mean by that is you can live across the country from your parents. That doesn't change your God-given role. It's like you still have a role as a child. And if you think it's like, well, I'm a state away, I'm 7 states away, and that means I don't have to take care of my parents, uh, you need to adjust your thinking. And so, Brenda, I'm about to go on a rant. We decide where we live. We decide whether or not we want to live close to our family. We decide whether we want to live close to our brethren. We decide whether we want to live close to where the church assembles. All those choices are in our control typically. And so those are decisions that we should take seriously and think about the responsibilities we have as Christians, whether it's to the church, whether it's to our brethren, or whether it's to our family members. And so sometimes it happens though, where you're a state away or however many states away. And I'll also say to Brenda's point, this is one of the the pros, the benefits, however you want to put it. This is one, let me put it, this is one of the blessings of the church because you do have brethren nearby in time of need that they can help you and you can help them. And so it is a blessing of the church. All right, any other comments? Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Just just kind of a comment, we have an example from the Good Samaritan to help whoever needs help.
Sure.
And I think as a physical family relationship, you do have extra responsibilities. You may not be close to your parents, or you could be like me, your parents are gone, your husband's parents are gone, if you're able to help other people, we should all be willing and able to help whoever needs help, because our neighbor is everybody.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
lawyer said,
you have
"Who
to be
is
a
my
wise
neighbor?"
steward, in doing that.
Yeah.
You have to determine what you can do and what you can't do without totally ruining your own life. But at the same time, we know that we have a responsibility to whoever really needs help. And then,
Yep.
like the physical family and the church, sure, they come first, But if you have a next door neighbor that needs help, and you just, say Godspeed or whatever, you're
Yeah.
still going wrong. You need to be helping any way that you can.
At some point, you run smack dab into Galatians 6, do good unto all, especially those of the household of faith. It's
Right.
like, I understand the especially, but you
Mhm.
still have the do good unto all part.
Right. Right.
And just as you have opportunity and you have the ability, you've probably heard people say that old saying, if you have the opportunity and you have
That's
the ability,
responsibility.
then you have the obligation.
Mhm.
And so that's what the Lord wants us to do. All right. Let's go on to the fourth question. So, what part does the parent play in the child's wisdom or foolishness? What part does the parent play? Go ahead, Mark.
Just gonna say, well, a big part, teaching and
Yep.
example, and especially example. It's so important.
You can teach all day long, but if you're not living it out, it's children can spot a hypocrite. Um, and so, yeah, so you have teaching. Again, Proverbs 31. That whole passage about the virtuous woman, that all begins with the words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. That's Proverbs 31, verse 1. Other verses about teaching, Proverbs chapter 22 at verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And so there are plenty of verses that speak about the need to teach your children, and a part of that teaching would be a verse we've already considered in chapter 3 in Proverbs chapter 3 at verse 12, verse 11. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor detest his correction. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as a father the son in whom he delights. And that we teach our children. Well, let me keep reading. There's another couple of proverbs that I want to read concerning that, and I'll ask a question. Proverbs 22 at verse 15 says, "Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him." That's Proverbs 22, and I'm going to put this one up on the screen. Proverbs 22 at verse 15. And my question is going to be, does this apply to all children? Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it from him.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce. Thank you.
We know all children are all different. And some
Amen. I have two in there right now that are as different as they can be.
you can just speak to a child and they'll break down and cry. Others, you can hit them spank them, and they just laugh it off. So it depends on the child what you're going to do. Really,
And I guess my question is, Bruce, that business about foolishness is bound up in the heart of the child. Is that universal with all children? That's my question. Do all children need discipline? I understand all children are different,
They all need discipline, yes.
but do you have to deal with foolishness with all children?
Sometimes this much, sometimes that much.
But it's always something, isn't it?
Always
be.
something. It's always something.
And it
and
might be children trying to push the envelope,
and
see
when
what they
they're
can get away
youngest,
with.
Mhm.
when they're small, that's the time to nip it in the bud.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because if you let them get older,
You lost the battle.
Katie barred the door.
Yeah. Um, and so this is the role that parents have in whether their children will be wise or foolish. So that was Proverbs 22, verse 15. Another verse along those lines, Proverbs chapter 29. Proverbs 29 at verse 15. The rod and the rebuke give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame on his mother. Right? So that initial verse that we were looking at, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Well, the way that some sons are foolish is because they've been left to themselves. Right? A child left to himself brings shame on his mother. And y'all have heard me talk before about free range kids, and children need discipline. There's proverb after proverb after proverb about that. And sometimes what the parents have to do, and Bruce, this somewhat goes to your point. Let me look at our time. You have to find the right switch. And no, I don't mean switch like off the tree, although sometimes it is a switch off the tree. But like Bruce said, sometimes, and I'll say this, so I know awkward with my two kids in the other room. One of those kids, you could spank all day long, and he wouldn't laugh at you, but he wouldn't respond. And now I said he, so you know which one it was. So you had to find something else. And I remember the day that I found something else. And he had a certain toy that he liked. And that toy became no more. And I destroyed that toy in front of him.
It has to hurt a little bit.
It has to hurt. It has to hurt to the point where they want to do better, where they do not want to experience that pain or that loss.
Mhm.
It has to hurt. If you just give it the old attaboy, you can do better, or attagirl, you can, it's like, no, it takes discipline. And the father, I mean, again, that verse about the Lord corrects us. And sometimes the Lord corrects us, and sometimes it is very gentle and very compassionate. And other times he starts turning over the tables in our own heart. And you take the Lord's discipline, and the father chastens those that he loves. And that's the bottom line. You're doing this because you love the child. This is the role that parents have in their child being wise or foolish. And eventually you reap what you sow. Right? If you don't practice these things, as your children get older, what will they do? They'll be a grief to you.
Mhm.
They'll bring shame on you. And the sad thing is, you as a parent may have played a role in that. And so if you'll do what the Lord says to do, and it's hard, we only have 2 minutes left, so can't do a 20-minute discourse on this. How hard is it to spank your kids?
Sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it's not
Sometimes it's
difficult at all.
fair enough.
When you know you've given enough warning
Yeah,
and they haven't listened, and I
yeah,
was one that always felt you should give them at least one warning to let them know they did something wrong.
sure.
And then after that, they still do it. They deserve it, you know, but they can
Yep.
get on your last nerve sometimes.
Yep, absolutely.
What
So, any other thoughts? We just have 1 minute and a half left. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
what's the old saying when you get spanked? Your parent says, "This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you."
Yeah.
I never believed that.
And
I don't
dis-
think I ever said that to my kids.
yeah. And so, you know, what it all goes into is a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief to his mother. And we don't want to be a grief to our parents. We want to be wise for their sakes, for our sakes, and for others' sakes. So, anyway, appreciate y'all being on here this evening. We're pretty much out of time. Hope it's been helpful. Y'all take care. Hope you have a good week.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
John, thanks.
Appreciate y'all.